MV1 has left the building and MV33 is back. And I want to be happy about this going into 2026. But I was invested in 2025 as far as the Drivers' Championship is concerned. I really was. I thought that Maximilian Verstappen could do it. As implausible and improbable as it was, in the hands of Max Verstappen, it's never ever mission impossible. Don't believe me? Please see British Grand Prix qualifying, Saudi Arabia, where he made the difference yet again. Suzuka Grand Prix, same thing. Max Verstappen has it in his toolbox to make the difference. Franz Tost told us that this dude in a good car is worth anywhere between 2 and 3 tenths on the rest of the grid. The pertinent part of that phrase, of course, is in a good car, because Red Bull sold us a dream, and when the tide went out as far as the automotive pugilism in 2025 is concerned, they had no clothes. When Adrian Newey told us that he was leaving, the likes of Christian Horner then said, oh, not to worry, we can work in a way that's autonomous, we'll be okay. We got Pierre Vacher, he's been stewarding, deputising all the while for an Adrian Newey who hasn't put a finger on a Red Bull car for as near as makes no difference, 2 to 3 years. That's what they told us then. Now, however, you need a chap who's capable, who's got the wherewithal to take a step back and see the F1 wood for the F1 trees and troubleshoot for an RB21 that still won't fudging turn. Where is Pierre Vacher now? They brought upgrades, of course they did, but then you come to find out that they weren't working at this Grand Prix such that Maximilian Verstappen took them off. They weren't driving around this Grand Prix at Brazil Interlagos with the upgrades at Mexico. No, that was an Austin Grand Prix Cota spec RB21. That's how far Red Bull have regressed, and that, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is not good enough. You have yourself a Max Verstappen who you just need to pass the bloody ball. Give him half a car and he'll do the bloody difference. If you don't believe me, as per the aforementioned exhibit A, B and C, those will tell you all that you need to do. Just build him half a car, something that can do something, do you know what I mean? Maybe make it be able to turn around the low, medium speed, long duration turns that so characterise Sector 2 at Brazil. Maybe that might be a stop, but they didn't do it. Oh, the humanity. And I lost my mind, not just as a Max Verstappen fan, but a fan of Formula One, because everybody's going to go away and come back in March. Now, nobody cares. This is rubbish. What Lando Norris is going to go and run away with. Of course he is. But F1 is built upon circumstance and uncertainty. Per Michael Schumacher 2004, if you have yourself a certainty, if the next 4 races are written already and Lando's going to run away, but then why is anybody going to tune in? And that leaves me filled with regret. Max is, of course, washed. No nonsense, he's washed. He was never very good, do you know what I mean? Never in the conversation. That Max guy, never in the conversation for the GOAT. Of course he wasn't. He's a fast car merchant, no nonsense, do you know what I mean? Now Adrian Newey's left, and how very dare you, no nonsense. You could not argue that with a straight face, not if you had your eyes open, unless you wished to declare yourself as an abbot of F1 reason. Maximilian Verstappen has been bad thus far this year. Even if he doesn't win the championship, which is likely now in all probability, you've got to look at his body of work, and he hasn't been too bad. Speaking of not too bad, you've got to put some respect on Lando Norris. I thought Max could put a tractor on pole. Have you heard of Grice's razor? Menace the GOAT. Do you understand sentiment over form? If we want to play semantic games and be stupid, then we can do that all day and night. But you understand the sentiment. It was Franz Tost who said that Max Verstappen was worth anywhere between 2 and 3 tenths in equal machinery on the rest of the grid. Why, Menace the GOAT, do you think Toto the boy who cried wolf will sell his family and kick King George Russell in the chest if it means that he can get so much as a whiff of the signature of Maximilian Verstappen? Because Max Verstappen isn't a bad peddler. You can say all you want to, but if you purvey the circumstance in real time and understand what scientific evidence looks like, you'll put some respect on MV33's name, full soon to be 5-time champion. Oh, and by the way, It's time that I put some respect on Lando Norris's name. I've talked the talk on Lando Norris and Dustin from Stranger Things. Sometimes when you see this dude on the cover of British Vogue, you'll forgive me for questioning whether this dude has the minerals, yeeting it into the gearbox of Oscar Piastri, his teammate no less in Canada. Can't get start bottle job extraordinaire. 28 places is how many places Lando Norris lost on the first lap last year, more than any other driver on the grid, and that doesn't look and feel like championship material, does it? However, sometimes you've got to go away and evolve, right? Learn, bring more tools, add more things to your repertoire, and it feels like Lando all of a sudden had to go through a bit of a slump, a trough per se mid-season. Since then he's gone away and he's come back and he's worked on himself, right? He's taken off the delta information on the steering wheel during qualifying, understanding acutely that affects him to the downside, that there is lap time in not knowing, in being able to focus in real time on the process, flow state. That's what Lando Norris is invested in now. He's going to go and do British Vogue sometimes. But again, I've said a gazillion times, but we'll reiterate for the avoidance of that. If he comes in and then drops it on pole, what am I or you to say? All heads must bow at that point, right? Because Lando Norris is doing everything that he can do to optimise for his performance, delivering on his not insubstantial potential. 109.511, and as impressive as that lap time is from Lando, what I'd argue is more impressive is the circumstance under which he delivers it. I've said a gazillion times, and we'll reiterate for the avoidance of doubt, that Lando, without pressure, is one of the quickest drivers in F1, right up there with Max and Charles. Of course he is. You'd be disingenuous at this stage to argue any different, but with pressure is where you always have to ask yourself a question about Lando Norris, that the greatest, the difference between the very goods and the very greats, is their ability to extract out of themselves the best of themselves in the biggest points. The Q3s at Monaco, the Q3s at Interlagos, in the dying embers when your banker lap didn't work and you've got to go in the pits and finish with your momentum. Dead it off, go in the pits and put on some new soft compound tyres. That's what Lando Norris did today, and I think that was worthy of note. I didn't think he was going to do it, chat. And again, Lando Norris says, you know what, Cameron, I will see you that and raise you this. To which I have to say this: bravo, Lando, standing ovations, sir. Whether he gets it done off the start again like he did in the sprint race is a different thing, but as at the time of writing, Lando Norris is ticking all the boxes and answering in real time all the questions of the Drivers' Championship variety. Bravo, sir. Maybe Oscar, but maybe I've got Oscar wrong, chat. Maybe I've got to eat some humble pie and hold some corn. Maybe Lando Norris is championship level. We'll see over the next few races, won't we? Because it looks like Oscar Piastri again has not found his form. I spoke to Mahad of McLaren F1, McLaren Fan TV, excuse me, and he's infinitely more acutely aware of all the circumstance and nuance as far as those McLaren drivers. And he said in October that there's something about Oscar Piastri. When he loses his form, it's really difficult for him to recover it. Pay zero attention to his countenance and his stoic exterior. Pay every attention, every millimetre of attention to how he's doing on track, because he's a form player, form driver. That's what Oscar Piastri is, he said. And I didn't believe him. I said, Mahad, you're having a laugh, mate. What are you talking about? But where has that dude's form gone? Last race weekend, of course, at the Mexican Grand Prix, everybody said, well, it's low grip and he's not as overlappy as Lando, so that doesn't help him as far as getting the fronts up to temp and keeping the rears in order from degging. But what's the story now at Brazil? Maybe he's just not good around these tracks, as he hasn't been if past his prologue in seasons past. Mention no names, Brazil not being the only one. Qatar second and third in historic events. But what about Abu Dhabi? What about Qatar? And what about Las Vegas? Because Oscar Piastri is going to have to turn himself a corner and quick time if he harbours aspirations of winning races over the next 4 and championships. It's going to get techie for Oscar Piastri. And that's not to say that I don't rate him, because remember, we've got to extend him some grace. He's only in his 3rd season, is he not? And Oscar Piastri deserves some credit, but 109.886. What are we doing here, chat? That's 4 tenths, as near as makes no difference, half a second adrift of Lando Norris in the same car. Oscar Piastri meant to be competing for a championship of the drivers' variety. 4th. What are we doing here, chat? It's not good enough, is it? That doesn't feel right somehow. Tyson, you're an absolute legend, by the way. Get yourself over to the Discord. Holy copium. Easy G, it's techie. I'm trying to give Lando some credit, your boy. But again, you cut off my cojones. Go on, let's talk about, again, this was a difficult one for me. The stream got techier than techie things, if not because it was a double gut punch in the first instance. The one that they call Maximilian Verstappen GOAT falls into a champion. He goes out in Q1. Now that's not good enough. You can talk about the reasons why and wherefore. Of course, Max would have had a part to play. But if you're talking about the lion's share of culpability as a percentage of the whole, surely you've got to look at Red Bull and that car. In the second instance, though, the first gut punch is very quickly followed by the second. That is Sir Lewis Hamilton going at this. And let me explain to you why this is techie for me. Those are my 2 drivers. Lewis, of course, came before. Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton came before Max Verstappen. But the problem is this. We sold a promise as far as Scuderia Ferrari are concerned. And Frederick Vasseur and Lewis was coming there. The red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop. It's Lewis in the Instagram picture touching the prancing horse, etc., etc. There was promise in there. We understood that the symbiosis of brand Hamilton and Scuderia Ferrari was something that we've never ever seen in Formula One. That the level of mainstream accessibility was unprecedented as far as Sir Lewis's landscape, his social media footprint is concerned. But John Elkann told us this, right? That this isn't a marketing exercise. They're not paying $70 million per year to Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton to look good in a suit and touch a prancing horse. They want victories. Why? Because there is no better marketing ploy than a W, than silverware of the drivers and or constructors variety. They came close last year within 14 points. A cheeky Carlos Sainz DNF away from a constructors. It's been a while now, though, hasn't it? For Ferrari, 2008, if I recall correctly, was the last time they touched any silverware. That time, it was of the constructors. Before then, it was 2007 with Kimi Räikkönen and the drivers. That was ages ago, chat. This, therefore, isn't good enough. Enzo Ferrari will be turning around in his grave. And I'm not just going to put the scopes on Lewis Hamilton because that would be unfair. That would be disingenuous of me, because the car's been a dog. The acclimatization process has gone on far too long. But when all's said and done, the headlines will look something like this. Over the past 23 races, including sprints, Lewis Hamilton has only finished before Charles Leclerc once, twice, 3 times of the past 23. That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. Lewis currently 64 points adrift of his younger teammate Charles Leclerc. And how can you justify that, chat? If it was Sainz or somebody else or an Alex Albon, whatever, we can extend some grace. But that chap in that car is getting paid $70 million. He has a name. His name is Sir Lewis Hamilton, 7-time champion, Mount Rushmore of Formula One, first round Hall of Fame. I can only attribute as causation to that level of underperformance, lest we forget as well, to get more techie, as far as Ferrari drivers ever in their maiden voyage, their first season in the red car with the yellow badge and black prancing corset top, Lewis Hamilton has now gone 20 races without a podium, more than any other Ferrari driver in F1 history. This, ladies and gentlemen, Lewis Hamilton going out in Q2, again not getting through to Q3, is Lewis Hamilton's 6th time this season that he hasn't got into Q3. I don't think that's befitting of who I and you know Sir Lewis Hamilton to be. So what do you chalk it up to, if not the fact that Father Time is undefeated, undisputed, pound for pound, has never lost around? It gets techier than techie things. McLaren make everybody sad. Dustin, it's techie. I tell you what, it's techie, but they would have nailed it if they keep that team together. It is unprecedented circumstances. You heard me talking about it earlier with Andrew Benson, who of course said that if they can keep that team together, that Zak Brown and Andrea Stella would have done what no other team in F1 history have done. That's keep two number one drivers together and everybody happy and win both the constructors and drivers. Lando's making history as well. Lando won't be remembered a bit like Button. It won't be a decisive world championship if he wins. Gary, I mean, we're clutching at our pearls, aren't we? I can't do the Lando Norris hate thing. Not on the back of that performance. Now, you can love or loathe Lando. You might not like his extracurricular activities and quadrant and British Vogue. But again, on the back of that performance, what are we going to do or say? How do you criticise the performance, particularly when you look at Ruth Buscombe's explanation of it on Twitter? Here's how she said in closing. Here's what she said that Lando Norris did so well. And this is important. Quote, "Precision wins where instinct tempts you to overdrive. This track at Interlagos is techie. Lest we forget the penultimate. Sector 2 is chaos. An absolute nonsense dragon. Very technical and difficult to slave for." Ruth Buscombe says that Lando delivered a flawless 109.511, nearly 2/10 clear of a raging fire-breathing dragon in Kimi Antonelli, and 0.3 clear of rival Oscar Piastri. A lap, Ruth Buscombe says, from Lando Norris, built on rhythm and restraint, around 4.3 kilometres of Interlagos, alive through every phase but never out of shape. Where Norris gained turn 1 to turn 2 earlier rotation, gained 2 to 3 kilometres per hour mid corner, turn 6 to turn 8 composed through low changes, gained another 5/100ths, turn 12 line was straighter, traction up the hill, gained another 10th as near as makes no difference. Why did it work? Well, Lando Norris, says Ruth Buscombe, God tier technical mind as far as all things F1 are concerned. That he gained Norris, that he gained time, did Lando, because he linked every phase together. There was never any over rotation, no wasted grip, and seamless load transfer. And I say all that to say this, props to Lando Norris. He wasn't bad today, and I didn't think that he had that in him. Not to forget the fact that he got the start off of the sprint as well. What are we doing? He's ticking all the boxes. Ask you, am I wrong for thinking that the champion shouldn't always be given the luxury of a pushover teammate? Surely it adds credibility to Lando's championship lead. I don't disagree, because Oscar Piastri is not a slouch. He's not a slouch. But again, Oscar Piastri, I don't know, he's got to sort it out, hasn't he? He's going to get techie and techie things to the race tomorrow. But what I don't want, chat, desperately, for Lando's sake, is for him to just run away with it. I'm desperate. I hope for Lando's sake and for Oscar's that Oscar can continue keeping it close, hold Lando Norris's feet to the F1 flame, lest the Lando Norris haters want to come out and start booing that chap again. Boo him if you don't like him. I get it. But don't boo him on the back of a performance when as near as makes no difference. He's been perfect, answering all the questions that the likes of myself, in and amongst the rest of the Lando Norris naysayers, have been pitching at him for as near as makes no difference 24 months. Props, Lando Norris. It's going to get techier than techie things between now and next time, chat. The prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.